Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It's your boy Isaac,
And this is your boy Bryce.
and we are brothers on tennis. And folks, we have come to the end of the road. We are at the end of the tennis season for 2024. Bryce, we had the ATP Finals, and man, oh man, is Italy on fire this year? Talk to
Oh
me,
my.
brother.
I mean, whether you're talking Billie Jean King Cup, whether you're talking Davis Cup, whether you're talking about the individual, the center, or you're talking about our girl Paolini, you're talking about doubles with Paolini and Irani. I mean, Italy is the place to be.
It's the place to be, bro. I mean, they are doing big things. And as it relates to the ATP finals, man, Yannick Sinner got up in there. He showed up and he showed out, simply put.
I mean, this was the year for center.
Yeah.
With the exception of him taking the L from Carlos Alcaraz in the big tournaments, he basically ran the table
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And for me, Isaac, it's going to be very interesting to see, since this was such a big year for him.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have the ability to roll that into next year and keep it going? Or is there going to be, is some of this, how much he played? Is he going to be a little more tired? Is going to be a bigger target on his back? Are people going to start learning his game a little more? Are these suspension and performance enhancing drug whispers going to get louder? Is there going to be suspension? I mean, there's just so much around him to look and to see what's going to happen in 2025.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, I think that there are two significant factors. One, of course, is like you mentioned, the WADA. So that's the whole drug suspension. Are they actually
Mm-hmm.
going to come in and do something that's going to impact him and not allow him to play? That's one
Right.
thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the second piece of it will always be, and this is what it will be going forward, is the Carlos Alcaraz factor.
Right.
I think that Sinner to me is showing a level that will be sustained for a good while as long as he stays healthy. And I
Right.
think that he will be contending for those Grand Slams. But to me, I think even Paul Anacone may have said it, or one of the announcers. There's still, and we've talked about this, Alcaraz has that level that
Right.
honestly, I don't think anybody on the men's side has a level that Carlos Alcaraz can reach. And when he's
Right.
at that level and performing that way, even
Right.
Yannick Sinner will not be able to play with Carlos Alcaraz. So if he can find that level when he needs it against Sinner,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be the thing that will get in Sinner's way. But outside of that, Sinner's looking dominant, man.
Yeah.
He's looking at these other guys, and it's like, ain't nobody scared of you. Ain't nobody worried about your game. Let's go.
Well, and I want to add something to that Carlos Alcaraz piece. For me, and I try to stay away from any comparisons of Alcaraz to the big three,
Yeah,
and even though he's passing them in some of the categories already,
already.
but one of the things that I equate with Alcaraz that may be a problem for Sinner and really the rest of the tour, we talk about that extra level, yes, but I think Alcaraz is probably the most difficult player on tour to beat in best of five.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they catch him slipping in the best of three all the time, right?
right.
And that's what gets some of his fans a little frustrated. They're like, "How did you lose this to such and such?" But what you do not see happening, you do not see him losing those matches in best of five.
Yeah,
He might lose a set, he might even lose two sets, but I don't know the statistics, but I would be very interested in what Alcaraz's record is in best of five set matches.
right, right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I think that he will be that standout like the big three.
Mhm.
You might get him here, you might get him there, just those little things. But in the Grand Slams, I think you're right. I think it will be Sinner and Alcaraz, and like I said, I'll slide Zverev in there for a little bit as well because he is
Mhm.
showing some pretty good form, and he's been he's been far in a lot of the Grand Slams. So for
Right.
whatever reason, that guy just knows how to continue to get it done. But
Hmm.
again, then he falls to, of course, the big two. So
Right. And I think there are a couple of players that are going to be what I call the bridesmaids
mhm.
of Alcaraz and Sinner. I
Yeah,
mean, I think Zverev will probably beat most people till he gets to them.
Yep.
I say the same thing for Medvedev. I say the same thing for, we've already seen with the people that were supposed to do something like Tsitsipas and Casper Ruud. And I mean, they do pretty good beating the people that they should most of the time.
Right.
But when they get to an Alcaraz or they get to a center, it's a good night.
Yeah, and like we're talking about, especially at a Grand Slam, and when you
Yes.
got best of 5, it's just not something that they're able to sustain that level to be able to get 3 sets off of those guys. So I think over the next year to 2 years, it's going to be their show, and it'll be interesting to see who else comes to contend with that. I know we've talked about Ben Shelton, we've talked about Arthur Fils, and we've talked about some of the other young guys who are showing glimpses of being able to be at that level, but it will be interesting to see how much progress they can make.
Right. Well, and I want to kind of transition this conversation a little bit going into the ATP Finals,
Yes.
which happened last week. And we had a number of comments from the BOT fam, from our followers, about how in the sport of tennis, we're some weird people, right?
Yes, we are.
We can acknowledge good tennis and great tennis and when it's something spectacular.
Yeah.
But that does not always mean that it's entertaining.
Yeah.
And we had a number of people this week say, it's the ATP Finals. Kind of a snooze fest for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and you have that when you have a player that just was so dominant like Yannick Sinner was. I mean, he got up in there and he really did clown the other fellas. I mean, I don't think a set went above 6-4. I think he beat 2 guys 6-4, 6-4. He beat 2 other guys 6-3, 6-4. He put them bangs on who did he put them bangs on 2 and 1? Was that Demonar?
No, that was Casper Ruud.
Oh, that was exactly. Yeah. So
in the semifinals.
In the semis as well. So
yeah,
that of course, like the BOT fam said, it doesn't really make for a very lively, entertaining. Well, and in truth, I think even the commentators were saying this. Not very many sets went to 3 sets.
Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3 matches last week went to 3 sets.
So when you're having straight sets and these kind of beatdowns, if you will, it makes for a less competitive event. So I get that feedback. I definitely get it. Yeah.
So for the people that may not have watched all week, let's just take a stroll through the week and see how the matches went. For those people that are not familiar with the format of the year-end championships, the players are divided into 2 groups. They play round robin in those groups, meaning they play each person in their group.
Right.
And then the top 2 people in each group then move to the semifinals.
Right.
The top first place in, let's call it Group A. I forgot what they were naming the groups this time.
Yeah.
I think they were named after players, but first place in Group A plays second place in Group B in the semis, and then, vice versa.
Right.
And the first group, we had Yannick Sinner, Alex de Minaur, Taylor Fritz, and Daniil Medvedev. Medvedev, sorry. And going into this, my thought would have been Sinner and Medvedev. But let's see how that went. So Isaac, your thoughts on day 1 where we had Sinner took out Alex de Minaur, and then for the first time ever, Taylor Fritz took out Daniil Medvedev.
Yeah, I mean, the first match was predictable. I think everybody, of course, was thinking that Yannick Sinner would take out de Minaur. I mean, he's got, the great wheels. He's known for that. But with Yannick Sinner being able to, again, come out of the corners the way that he does, turn defense into offense, you pretty much knew where that match was going. So 6-3, 6-4, that was straightforward. The match that surprised me really was Taylor versus Medvedev. And it's really shown 2 things, in my opinion. It has shown the growth of Taylor Fritz. He's, made that U.S. Open final. He's, moved himself solidly in the top 5 in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just doing great things. And I feel like we should take credit for that because we interviewed his coach, Michael Russell, and all those good results, U.S. Open, all of that stuff started happening after Brothers on Tennis. So just want
You're
to say
welcome,
that
Michael.
you're very welcome. but in all seriousness, Bryce, it shows the great level that Taylor Fritz is at and showing right now. But it
Right.
also shows what you and I were talking about in previous episodes, and it shows that Medvedev has dipped, and
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know where it's come from. But for whatever reason, he just doesn't seem to be able to problem solve the way that he once did in a
Right.
lot of these matches that you would expect him to win.
Right.
And it was that. So to me, that was a surprising result. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with everything. I mean, I knew Sinner was going to run through Demon Yar. But whenever you have somebody beating someone for the first time,
Yeah.
I right. And I agree with your assessment wholeheartedly. So I won't just repeat the whole thing. But I'm concerned for Daniil in terms of now, look, Daniil's not going to fall out of the top 5 because number one, he plays a lot and he wins a lot.
Right.
But his winning used to take him to the finals and sometimes holding up these trophies at the end of the week. And now he's getting stopped in the quarters and the semis.
Right.
So it will be very interesting to see if he has a bounce back in 2025 for some of the results we've seen in 2024.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like he definitely needs some rest because you could tell that he was very mentally fatigued
Mm.
at the ATP Finals. So hopefully he can get some downtime, spend some time with the family, and get back after it in 2025 because we really, of course, love Daniil, love his
We do.
tennis.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can get back to his winning ways.
Right.
Even though I still feel like it is so ridiculously strange that he has won something like 20 tournaments and he's never repeated a tournament victory. So he's never, so folks, that means he's won every tournament, 20 of them, but he's never won any of those twice.
Right.
All
Exactly.
different. All different.
Exactly.
Crazy.
And if it was going to happen to anyone, it would
Yes.
be Daniil. Right. All right. So let's move to the second day where we get a chance to see the second group.
Yes.
And that group has Alexander Zverev. We
Uh-huh.
have Rublev, Ruud, and Carlos Alcaraz.
Yes.
So on their first day, Zverev takes out Rublev 4-4, but we have another surprise. Casper Ruud beats Alcaraz, gave him a breadstick in the first set, 7-5. What happened in those two matches?
Well, and Casper was nice enough to allude to this on several occasions in the post-match interview. Carlos Alcaraz came into the event under the weather, so he was having issues breathing. And of course, any of us that plays tennis knows how crazy it is to try and go out and play the game of tennis when you can't breathe. Come on now, you need your endurance to be able to play. And so kudos to, for Alcaraz, first of all, for just stepping on the court. That in itself was great because, again, you wouldn't want to disappoint, the fan base and him not show up. So he did take the court, tried to get better. But Casper just had, but you also do have to give, some really strong kudos to Casper Ruud because he got out there and he took it to him. He was just like, yeah, you might be under the weather, but that don't make no difference. You done stepped on this court, so now you're gonna take this whipping, and that's exactly what happened. He beat him up in that first set, and then the second set, Carlos began to try to, find his range, find the breathing. But at that point, Casper just had himself set and was in full command. So he played a great match, but of course it was definitely a surprise. But I mean, at the same time, like I said, kudos to Casper for getting that W.
Mm-hmm. And then what about Zverev over Rublev?
Well, I've said this for a while, and I don't mean to be mean, and so I apologize to anybody if it comes across as mean because that's not what I'm trying to do. To be in the top 8 players in the world is an incredible achievement, and for Andre Rublev to have done that year after year after year is phenomenal. But simply
Right.
put, I have always seen Andre Rublev as a 5 through 8 player. I don't
Hmm.
see him making semis. I see him, when the draw opens up, he'll make a final, he'll win. So he's won a 1,000 a couple times,
Hmm.
I think. But in the overall, when everybody is healthy, I
Right.
will. It's hard for me to see Andre Rublev advancing to a semifinal of anything because again, I always see him in that 5 through 8 range. So,
Right.
in my opinion, when he plays Vera, that was the result. And honestly, his tournament, which he went 0-3, that
Hmm.
that was what I expected because again,
Right.
you're playing the top 8 players in the world. So if you're at the bottom of that list, you're probably not going to be beating nobody, and that's been the case this year. And I don't believe he won a match last year either.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to
What are your
Rublev though.
thoughts? I like the kid. We've interviewed him. He's a nice
Right.
kid. Of course, he's got those issues with hurting himself, which I really hope he works on that on the
Right.
off season because hitting yourself with a tennis racket, folks, that don't feel good.
No.
I've done it accidentally once, and I mean, this boy be pounding himself. So
Right.
he's got to go work on that. And I think he does have to get to some understanding that again, it's going to take a lot more for him to build his game to be able to really truly get up into that top five.
Right. I agree with you.
So, folks, while Bryce is indisposed for a little bit, we'll keep talking about those ATP finals. I mean, it was so very good. And like I said, Rublev, great guy. My hope is that he can continue to, again, build his game, and we want him to, again, grow as an individual. Hey, Bryce, welcome back. We're still recording, so we're good.
Yeah.
I filled the space. Folks know this is live, so
Right.
we things happen. So welcome back.
Gotta love technology, right?
It's always good, isn't it?
All right. So let's keep it moving. Let's
Yeah,
go back to let's go to the second day of the first group.
perfect.
And on this day, we had Yannick Sinner,
Hmm.
4-4 over Taylor Fritz, and Daniil Medvedev, 2-4 over Demon York.
Yeah, and again with those results, those are more what you would expect. I mean, Yannick Sinner played Taylor in the U.S. Open final, beat him pretty handily, so that's kind of what you were expecting to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
again, Daniil Medvedev has an incredible record, as I believe he does, against Alex de Minaur.
Oh,
So
I'm sure. Yeah.
he just continued his winning ways because again, you're talking about both guys being relatively defensive, and Medvedev just has a lot more range than Alex does. So, what
Right.
your thoughts on either of those two?
Well, just that at the end of that day, you now have Yannick Sinner, who's 2-0. Medvedev and Fritz are both 1-1.
Right,
And then Demure is 0-2.
right, yep.
So now we go back to day 2 of the second group.
Hmm.
And we have Zverev takes out Casper Ruud, 7-6, 6-3.
Yep.
And Alcaraz, like I told you, didn't need to breathe to beat Rublev, 6-3, 7-6. So,
And again, that's what's up. But like I said, even a Carlos Alcaraz at probably what was he 70-80% maybe at that point,
right,
he's going to beat an Andre Rublev because
right,
again, the variety in the game is not there for Rublev, and
right.
Carlos can match Rublev from the power standpoint on both the
Yeah.
forehand and the backhand side. So it
And movement.
and movement and everything. So
Yeah.
again, no surprises as it relates to either of those results.
So our tally now is Zverev is 2-0, Alcaraz is 1-1,
Yeah.
Ruud is 1-1, and Rublev is 0-2.
Yep.
And so for the final day of the first group, we had Sinner 3-4 over Medvedev,
Mhm.
pigeon, and Fritz and our first three setter over Demon Yara, 5-7, 6-4, 6-3.
Yeah, and I believe that might have been. I think their head to head is relatively close, as if I
Mm,
understood it. I could be wrong though, but yeah, I expected that match to actually be a little bit challenging because again, with Taylor has a great game, and again, he's shown that he is working at a really high level right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a little bit on the movement side that is always
Yeah.
just sort of, that little Achilles, if you will, for Taylor Fritz, and that's
Right.
where Alex Demonar makes up, is he's able to get all those balls back for Taylor. And I
Yep.
think that's why he pushes him, and that's why their head to head has been so close.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it also shows that confidence that Taylor Fritz has, because he's just like, I'm playing at a great level. My game is good. So I will
Mm-hmm.
be there in those third sets, those fifth sets, to really deliver and compete. And that's what he's shown throughout the year. It's been, like I said, it's been very impressive. I've been very
Right.
impressed with Taylor Fritz. So
Yes, me too. And I mean, Center has completely flipped the script on that record with Medvedev. Medvedev won like what, the first
the
six, or
first six or something. Yeah.
you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and now Center has won 7 of the last 8.
Correct. Correct.
So
It's bonkers, man. It's so
yeah.
ridiculous. And I feel like, remember how we always talk about those little things that
Mm-hmm.
really make a difference for players, how players, how certain things break certain people or players. I feel
Right.
like this is actually taking its toll on Medvedev. I think
Right.
Yannick Sinner is breaking Medvedev mentally. And I think that is now resulting in other people stepping up on him as well. So,
I got a little question for you.
yo,
Do you think Medvedev's coach might have to take kind of the L for this, and might Medvedev be looking for a different voice in his ear?
I, I wouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, and mind you, remember he added another Gilles, so he had Gilles Savara,
Mm-hmm.
and now
Yeah,
he added Gilles Simone, I think his name
Sloan.
is, from
Yeah.
France.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So he did get another voice in his ear. Honestly, I think with Medvedev, as crazy as he is, it ain't gonna matter, because you know what I mean. It's just not gonna matter. But I do feel like he might be thinking about that at this point, just because, again, he knows how talented he is, and he really,
Mm-hmm.
really, in my opinion, should be in that top four. So the
Right.
fact that he got displaced by Taylor Fritz, he's going to be doing some soul searching over this little break that we have. So you never know. Jills might be
Mm-hmm.
waving by. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Medvedev, that first loss to Taylor Fritz, ended up costing him getting to the semifinals, because now the final results of this first group, Center went 3-0, and Taylor ended up being the second place winner there in that group. So we have Center and Fritz moving on to the semifinals.
Right. Right.
We move on to the final day of the second group.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Alexander Zverev, who takes out Alcaraz 7-6, 6-4.
Yeah.
And Casper Ruud in 3 sets over Rublev 6-4, 5-7, and a whole biscuit in the third.
And let me just say something, Bryce. That day, I honestly felt like I got it wrong, because I would have actually picked both losers in both of those matches. If Rublev is going to beat anybody, it would be Casper Ruud on an indoor hard
court.
Right. You know what I mean? I just would have expected Andre to be able to step up and be able to get that match. So true enough, it did go 3 sets, but at the same time, he just didn't have enough for Casper Ruud, which to me was a bit surprising. Because like I said, if he was going to beat anybody, I was like, okay, I'll give you that one against Casper Ruud. But Casper was like, I'm having none of it. I just beat Alcaraz early in the week. I don't care if he couldn't breathe or not. I got the W, and I'm hyped about it. So he took care of business, which to me was great. And the reason I was surprised on the other one is because at that point, Carlos had been using the breathing strip. He looked like he was getting better with each match. And so I honestly feel like, had he been able to take that into a third set, Carlos Alcaraz would have won that match. But Zverev was having none of it. Zverev was like, I got to get you going quick.
No, I think Alcaraz seeing that Band-Aid across his nose got him in his fighting spirit. He was like, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. So
yeah.
That group, Zverev ends up winning that group, and Casper Ruud, because of the first day victory over Alcaraz,
Right.
ends up taking second place to move to the semifinals. So now we have a semifinals setup of Sinner against Casper Ruud and Taylor Fritz against Alexander Zverev.
Yeah.
And these two matches couldn't have been any more different.
Oh my God, completely different. One was a run through, and one was a, you know what? Let's put on the gloves and let's get it.
So the match for the opening act was Sinner versus Ruud.
And it was not a good opening act, folks, because Yannick Sinner was like, listen, you might have took out a disabled Carlos Alcaraz and made your way into this group. You're not ready for this level of tennis that I'm about to bring at you. He did an Iga, bro. He just opened up the bakery and was like, okay, I got breadsticks and whole biscuits for everybody. Come on in.
Red Hot sign was in the window.
In the window, bro. Just blinking. Blinking. That was a beatdown. Yannick Sinner was like, I'm not trying to play with you today.
Right.
And he really exposed Casper Ruud's game on an indoor hard court. He really did.
Well, and let me, peel back that onion a little more.
Yeah.
I think at that point in the semifinals, with Carlos Alcaraz not being in the semifinals, I'm sure Sinner felt like, I can beat the rest of these bitches. I mean, seriously. I mean, really. I mean, the only person I'm kind of scared of is Alcaraz.
Right.
I'm glad it's not me for the Pips. They not trying.
Yeah, he's like,
hear them trying to sing one run back there. That's mine. It's my show.
I love that. He was like,
ain't nobody come to see you, Otis.
Right? Ain't nobody come to see you. They came to see you last night, right?
I'm just trying to say it.
That was excellent. That was hilarious. And you're exactly right. Because Sinner was like, without an Alcaraz here, I'm not trying to worry about none of y'all.
No.
And so he worked him out. That was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So the opening act really was a very, wave goodbye type of a moment. And then, but the second one though, that one, I first and foremost, I got a lot of things to say.
Okay.
Because
you have the floor.
Here's where, because this is the thing. Taylor Fritz and Sasha Zverev have played a multitude of times this year.
Mm-hmm.
First time they played, Zverev was like, "Oh, I was sick. I wasn't feeling good. Blah blah blah. I think he had issues with somebody in Taylor's camp and blah blah blah. And he was blah blah at Wimbledon. He was talking, all this noise at the net. And it's like, folks, y'all need to understand something. Of all the Americans, Taylor Fritz is probably one of the most hood of all of them. You can't see it. You can't see it.
Right.
But he is hood. And like I said, lest we forget the incident he had with Rinderknecht, when Rinderknecht was talking about, oh, he don't need to be crying. And he was just like, okay, so we're going there. So, yeah, at the net after he scooped him up and sent him on, he was like, have a good plane ride. Yeah. Taylor Fritz is hood. Let me tell you. And his competitive level is like here. So when Zverev was talking all that yak about, oh, I'm not feeling good, so that's why he won, or oh, his camp was being all loud and disrespectful.
Right.
Taylor Fritz was taking stock of it. He was just like, okay. Yep. Okay. And Taylor Fritz was like, every time I come at you, I'm gonna put them things on you. And that is what Taylor Fritz has done all season long. He has not lost his Zverev. And I think that a lot of that is what spurred it on, because Taylor Fritz is somebody who I feel like he plays better tennis when he has a chip on his shoulder. And that's what I attribute to that, because Zverev was talking that yak about, oh, he beat me because I wasn't at my top form. Taylor was like, okay, I'm going to keep beating you. I'm going to keep beating you till you find that top form. How about that?
Right.
Your thoughts?
I have gained so much respect for Taylor Fritz in this past year in terms of his ability to get in there and really grind it out and to fight.
Right.
And look, There was one point where we were talking about, oh, Taylor's trying to be the number one American. No, Taylor is really trying to be in that top. Remember, we said we have all these Americans in the top 25, but do we have anybody that's going to be in the top 5?
Right.
And Taylor Fritz was like, say my name, say my name.
Right.
I'm there, right? Right? I'm there.
Right. Come
I'm
on.
trying to be in that mix.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Taylor Fritz, if he continues on the path forward, I, I would actually give him a chance to actually win a Grand Slam, because again, you just never know how things will go. You never know
right.
who's going to be ill at the tournament. We didn't expect Alcaraz to be ill, but we saw what happened there. If something were to kind of happen with those big two, don't be surprised if Taylor Fritz wouldn't slide up in there and be like an Andy Roddick and get him a Grand Slam.
Well,
I wouldn't predict it. Don't ask
mhm.
me if Carlos and Yannick are in a draw. I wouldn't unfortunately pick Taylor Fritz, but at the same time, if some things kind of work in his event, I could see him lifting a Grand Slam with the way he's playing these days.
Well, let me tell you what, and let's talk about the Australian. With Zverev now being the number 2 ranked player in the world, and you have Alcaraz and Sinner on the same side of the draw,
right?
If Taylor can end up being on the other side, you've already said how he's ready to pimp out Zverev when he needs to. Something, they take one of them out, and now you only have to go through one of them potentially in the final, and anything can happen when you got to serve like Taylor's.
Exactly. Exactly.
Alcaraz ain't breathing right that day. I mean,
it's possible. It is possible, bro. So I really think that, like I said, he's playing some really top shelf tennis right now. And so kudos to him. Yeah, he jumped out Zverev and was like, anybody scared of you? Bye.
Exactly. So we get into the finals, and now you have Sinner versus Taylor Fritz.
Yeah.
And it was 4-4. It was a competitive match. It was a good match, but I don't know that I, as a spectator, ever felt like the end result was ever in doubt.
No. Like it's like you said, when we went to the semis and there was no Carlos Alcaraz, I don't think at that point Yannick Sinner was concerned at all. He was like, I'm just going to go about my normal business and I will win this title. Because that to me is how solid he is. I mean, he is, in my opinion, it's funny because we talk about the big three. I feel like Sinner is Novak Djokovic and a part of Nadal. Because he's just very solid. His strokes are dependable. He's going to be there. He plays amazing defense. And he can turn defense to offense. I feel like that is who he is of the big three. On the flip, Carlos Alcaraz is Federer and Nadal. I feel like he's got that showmanship and the shot making of Federer, and he's got so much variety that he doesn't, but then he's also got that grittiness like Nadal does. And so I really feel like those two make up the big three. I don't think anybody else is in there at this point. I think it's just those two, bro.
I think it was just those two as well,
Yeah.
So shout out to Yannick Sinner for having, 2024 was definitely his year. The only ones he swung and missed on were the French and Wimbledon and the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. And that was Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic. So, I mean, hey, it wasn't like it was a buster,
Exactly. Now, real quickly, we just want to acknowledge on the doubles side of the house. Our guys, Arevalo and Pavic, who were the top seed in the final, went out in 2 tie breaks to Kevin Kravitz and Tim Putz.
Yeah.
So
I was all over those doubles, bro. The doubles was, in my opinion, it was fire. I enjoyed the doubles probably a little bit more than I enjoyed the singles, if I'm being very honest with you. Great competition. I'm so happy our boys got at least to the finals. They finished the year as the #1 doubles team, so you can't be mad at that. But Putz and Kravitz, they played some good tennis throughout that entire tournament. Really,
they did. I was a little disappointed because my guy Matt Ebden and Bopana, they just did not have a good tournament.
No. And
And
that's their last tournament together, right?
I know I didn't know that.
Yeah, they will not be together in 2025. So
I wonder.
it'll be interesting
Yes.
who he teams up with. I'm interested to see that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
do I want Ebden to team up with?
yeah,
Okay, I have to think
yeah.
about
Think
that.
on that. Yeah,
Hmm. All right. Well, fella, I mean, that was the year-end championship for the
yeah,
men.
yeah.
And in real time, we are now, the Davis Cup has started.
Yes.
And all the hype has been around this being Rafael Nadal's last tournament. And so let's take a short break. And when we come back, let's talk about Rafael Nadal, his legacy, and what he is doing at the Davis Cup. All right, we are back.
Back.
And Rafael Nadal, the second player of the big three to announce, he's on his way out. And
Yeah.
this Davis Cup is his last tournament. Makes a whole lot of sense as he's always been about country.
Yes.
And wanting to play for Spain. And they're playing the Netherlands. And he gets, I thought maybe what was a decent matchup today against Van der Zandschulp.
Yep.
And like I said in an episode about 4 months ago, the thing about Van der Zandschulp is that he will always beat your favorite player when you don't want him
When
to.
you don't want him to, yeah. That is a true statement because Vandy I call it Vandy Dandy. Vandy's got a very high ceiling when he is playing his best tennis. He really
Yep.
can beat anybody. Hence, I think, wasn't he the one that took out Alvarez at the US Open? Yeah. So again, his top level it can be really, really good. And
Yep.
like you said, when he gets, some of the big folks, he plays some of his better tennis. And I think in this time around, you had him playing Rafael Nadal in singles. Rafa hadn't played singles in a very long time. It's Davis Cup. We know it's his potentially last match. So of course you've got all of that weight on Nadal. And like I said, Vandy just did what he did, and yeah, he got in there, got the W, beat him 4-4. But kudos to Rafa for getting out there and competing. It was not as though he played a really poorly or anything like that. He really was competitive.
Right, and Spain, Alcaraz came behind him. Was able to tie it up 1-1, taking out Greek scorer. But unfortunately, Spain lost the doubles. So that does mean Rafael Nadal's tennis career, is now officially over.
Yeah.
And for all of you who have not seen it, and you can find it on our site on Instagram, you have to check out what Roger Federer penned to Rafa. It's so touching, but it's so what we know of Fadal.
Yeah, exactly.
And what can you say about Rafael Nadal? I mean, first of all, he has one record that I'm sorry, I'm just going to say will never be broken.
Ever.
14 Roland Garros titles. He completed the career Grand Slam. He has won an Olympic gold in both singles and doubles. Universally beloved.
Yes.
Known as maybe the best competitor ever in the sport of tennis.
Yeah.
And also known as one half of maybe one of the best friendships ever in tennis with Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. So what are your thoughts, Isaac, about his career and the legacy he leaves?
Oh, it's enormous. I mean, everything that Rafa has brought to the sport of tennis, again, we called him gritty. He's got that grittiness. They call him the bull for a reason. That was his emblem on his everything he wore. It's just incredible and extraordinary. I mean, initially coming in, I wasn't a big Rafa fan because, of course, I was team Fed.
Right.
But what it did was it made me appreciate Rafael for what he brought to the game, because he was a very humble, very
Mm-hmm.
nice, very good human being who simply wanted to play and be the best at the sport of tennis, and he was able
Correct.
to achieve that. And it's just, I just, like you were saying about the Roland Garros titles, that it's just ridiculous. I mean,
Right.
to win 14 Grand Slams at one event,
Yes.
no one will ever. I just have a very, very hard time believing anybody will be able
Right.
to touch that.
Right.
Such a phenomenal accomplishment. And like I said, just a great guy. And the friendship, it's so crazy how two rivals could build such a great friendship. And I know we saw that with Navratilova and Chris Everett. But it's just real special. I
But
mean,
I will say, with Chris Everett and Navratilova,
yeah,
you didn't really see the true closeness until they stopped playing.
stopped playing.
Matter of
Exactly.
fact, Chris even said she had to kind of keep Martina at an
Yeah.
arm's distance
Right.
because she had to stay focused.
Right.
We saw Nadal and Federer during the time that they were competing against each other,
Right.
being like, that's my A1.
That's my dude. Yeah, that's my
know?
dude. I think, and I think it goes to, if I'm being very honest, I think a lot of that credit goes to Rafael Nadal. And I say that only because Rafa is so humble and he's such a sweet guy. And he always would say, Federer's the best. He was like, aesthetically, everything about him is beautiful. His game and everything is so beautiful. I don't feel like Rafa gave himself enough credit for how incredible his game was. But I think that lends itself to a great friendship, because you can't have two guys with all this ego coming together.
Right.
And let us be very clear. I love Fed, but Fed did have an ego at the beginning, because he was like, who is this trying to come up in my space?
Right.
I'm the greatest. And I
Right.
think that with Rafa coming in the way he did, beating Fed, so he put fact on top of it. But at the same time, he was just like, yeah, I'm beating him, but he's still the best. And I think that it just allowed for that chemistry to build and grow.
Right.
And it was beautiful. To me, their friendship is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I feel, and I tell you what, one more thing. I think another thing that brought them together was Novak Djokovic.
I'm about to say Djokovic. Yes.
Speak on it. Speak on it. Speak
oh
on
yeah, absolutely. You know the what's that phrase?
The enemy, my enemy is a friend.
Yeah, common. Yeah.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Friend, right? And I tell you what, joke. Well, and once again, you spoke about how Nadal was as a person and his demeanor.
Yeah.
Djokovic did not come up like that.
No.
You know, he came in as kind of like if you think about family dynamics, as kind of like the bratty little brother, right?
Yep.
And he wanted, to be acknowledged by his two older brothers. He wanted to get in the middle of this party. And to Djokovic's credit, a lot of people thought he was never going to ever crack that.
Correct.
And did he, like the San Andreas Fault, he cracked it,
Boy, right?
But I totally agree with you that I think, because here's the interesting thing. When you look at fan bases, you had, Federer's fan base, and you had Nadal's fan base, and they eventually became like one fan base.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
so it became Fadal and then Djokovic.
Yep.
And so, but yeah, those guys, I mean, I feel fortunate that we lived during the time to see not only Federer and Nadal play, but really what I've said this for a long time.
Yeah.
More than what any of them have done individually, I think what the big three did during their time period, that may never happen again, where you see three players playing at the same time all crack 20 majors.
Plus majors. It's insane. It's insane.
It's a big deal for a player just to get double digits, let alone double digits that start with a 2.
Right.
Well,
they're the only three males that have done it.
Yeah. So shout out to them. Was glad to see Serena, did her little tribute out there today.
Yeah.
Rafa is definitely going to be missed. But the good thing, if I'm going to put like, a silver lining on this cloud a little bit, is that because of Nadal's injuries, we haven't really seen him in a competitive manner in a while.
Right.
So from the tournaments, from a day-to-day or week-to-week standpoint, I don't know that it's going to feel like as much of a loss from that perspective.
Right.
The same thing happened with Federer. He hadn't
Yep.
really been playing the whole nine. So I think that's a good thing for us as fans and spectators. But, goats.
All day, man, all day. He will be missed. Rafa will be sorely missed, especially when clay court season comes around next year. I think Carlos is beginning to, establish himself as that guy that you're going to have to get through in order to win Roland Garros. But I do feel like, there's definitely more competition. I think that with Rafa, you pretty much always knew,
You did.
Yeah, mean, it bet against him at your own peril.
Right. Exactly. So,
yeah.
Well, from Brothers on Tennis, Rafa and Nadal, thank you for the memories and thank you for all the great matches and for being an ambassador for the sport in the manner in which you did. Just truly, truly amazing. So, on that note, we're going to go ahead and sign off. On behalf of the podcast, this has been your boy Bryce.
And this is your boy Isaac.
And we are Brothers on Tennis. Everyone, be well.